CLeM, it's a simple game, it's simple to explain and to understand. I don't have way too many positives, I don't have way too many negatives. In general, I liked it because it's a well put game and it's polished, it's finished, it knows what it wants to be, which is something that I appreciate that games and developers put into their games. First, you need to have an idea, you have to execute it perfectly. You want to execute your idea, not something in between, like halfway through the development, you take a turn and no. This game seems to know what it wants to be. It aims and it shoots and the arrow gets to the target in a straight line. Now, what I was expecting a point and click adventure, and my first pleasant surprise was that I didn't get a traditional point and click. It was a point and click adventure, but non-traditional because you don't play with a mouse and then you cannot click, so it's not point and click. You don't point, you don't click. For a start, you play with a gamepad, and I was a little bit shocked in the beginning, but once I had my hands on the game and I started playing, I realized that it was a good decision because you control the main character, not the main character, maybe the main character is CLeM, the little girl. So you control a ragdoll that is your playable character, which is not the protagonist of the story. The protagonist is the little girl, CLeM, who is the one who's giving you the mission, your objectives, and your chores to do. You control this ragdoll, which we called in the stream RD, shorter for ragdoll. You control RD and you interact with the objects by getting close to them. And the game facilitates the interaction by showing you a prompt with what you can do. Either look, take, activate, whatever you can do with that object, the game already gives you the prompt. And it's a thing that happens throughout all of the game. I'll be repeating myself on this. The game's easy, the game facilitates everything, and the game, I think it's focused or it's looking for a target market that is either young in age and they haven't experienced old adventures, or general public that they haven't played this kind of game before, so they are not familiar with the tricks and usual things that you encounter in this type of game. So the game difficulty, it's low and it never lets you stray, it never lets you get stuck. And this is something that you can see in most of the aspects of the game, that they all have this in common. It's easy, it doesn't want you to get stuck, it doesn't want you to get bored, it's all the time giving you things to do. If you get stuck for whatever reason, it gives you prompts and it gives you helps and tips to get unstuck. So in this regard, the game is, I think it's not for me. And when I say me, I mean a player like me who is used to more difficult puzzles. Difficulty of the puzzles for me, I found it easy. The game, I found it easy. Wasn't very challenging, and because it wasn't challenging, I didn't feel rewarded by my accomplishment because I didn't have to think much. And I enjoyed the most elaborated because they made me think a little bit more, not more in the sense of harder, like trying to find a solution that it didn't come to mind, but for a longer time. Like you have to combine more pieces. Like I'm thinking on the clock puzzle, you have to do intuitive things, but you have to do it for longer. But it's still intuitive, so it's still easy, but because you're doing it for longer, you enjoy more that time while you are working on the puzzle. The game's easy for me, but it doesn't have to be a negative thing, and I'll comment it later. The game is short, and again, I think it goes along the same in the same direction. All the aspects of the game push the game towards the same direction. It's for people who are not familiar with this type of game, who haven't played before. They would find it easier to control the character directly, not by clicking, pointing, and like click hunting we were used to in the 90s. So the game is short, and when I finished the game, I was thinking I would have liked that the game was either more difficult or longer. And out of the two, I think it would have been better that the game was longer, not harder. Because if it was harder, maybe it was more challenging and entertaining and engaging for me. But the majority of players who played the game, maybe they would have left it halfway. So with the same difficulty, I think they could have made the game longer. Maybe elaborate the story a little bit more in depth, but that's for me. And this is, if it was longer, probably, I believe it's not the game the developers wanted to make. They wanted to make a concise story, straight to the point, easy to understand, nothing complicated, have a easy time. And made the game longer, it would have messed with the game mechanics, with the story, with the pacing as well. So I'm criticizing it, but I'm not saying it's negative that it's short. That's the bottom line. Also, as a general comment, this game, because it's easy, because it's short, because it's simplified in its mechanics and its controls, it's not a game that it's going to revolutionize the genre. It doesn't bring anything you haven't seen before. But on the other hand, this game mixes a lot of things that I'll talk about in a second. Mixes a lot of things from other games that are not usually seen in a point-and-click adventure. And the way they incorporate all these things, in my opinion, it's well executed. There are elements from... It's not a Metroidvania, although I've seen somewhere that this game has Metroidvania elements. I don't see it that way, but it has some elements. I would say it has some elements from Metroid games, which is the moment when you turn into a ball, which is not necessary. Nobody asks in a point-and-click adventure that you turn into a ball and you go through a maze. But this game has it, and it not only has it, but it also incorporates it, and it makes sense in the world that it creates and the story it tells. Also, there are like this kind of puzzle labyrinth with some physics, light physics, another one with a labyrinth that you can't turn back in some places. And this is my general idea of the game. It's easy, short, it's for a specific type of player or market, and the best is that the game is aware of this. The game is aware that who this game is for, and it tries to please them. This specific type of player is not for everyone. I enjoy it because I enjoy this type of game, but it's below my level of difficulty, so I didn't enjoy as much as I would have, or I could. This is my general idea, and the final score will reflect this. I'll start talking about the goods and bads. I don't have many, as I said in the beginning, and they are very specific and very clear. I'll start with the positives, because I have two positives and one negative. The positives, I think, overweigh the negatives, and I have two positives. One of the positives is the best of the best of the best. For me, clearly the best of the game. It's the amount of ideas that, even though this game is so short, it has a lot of ideas thrown in. And it's not like those games where you have an idea, a specific mechanic, and then you develop it for 20 hours, and good or bad, in a good or bad way. There are games where you get one mechanic and then you use it for 20 hours, the same again and again. Some others, they take this mechanic and then they use it for 20 hours, but they developed it. So this game is nor one nor the other. It's none of those. This game is short, so it gets one mechanic and you use it and you throw it. And then you get another one, you use it and you throw it. The game could take around 5 hours. It has 5 chapters. It could be divided into 5 chapters. It's not implied within the game, but it looks clear that it has 5 chapters. It could take around 1 hour to solve each one. So this game uses a lot of things, and there are so many things that when you use one, you don't have time to realize or to think on how you would use this next. like, oh, I can do this for another thing next time. No. It removes it and it gives you another one. In general, there's one ability for each chapter. I'm talking about one specific aspect of the game, which is how imaginative it is. And when I say imaginative, I'm talking about the magic toys. If I'm not mistaken, each chapter has one magic toy, and this reflection of what it wants to transmit this game, because these magic toys, they are like your usual abilities. They allow you to perform an action or to do something that you couldn't before, or also sometimes they allow you to access areas that you couldn't reach before. So this is like some Metroidvanias where you defeat a boss and you acquire their ability or something, or a power up or something, and then you are allowed to go back in the environment, in the scenario, revisit levels, and then do something new that you couldn't do before and access a deeper area within the same level. It happens sometimes. Sometimes some of these magic toys, they allow you to further explore the environment, which is one house. It's not a big world. Everything happens within one house and you are exploring the rooms of this house. But aside from the magic toys, which for me are the best of this game, it's how imaginative they are, because it's not just the magic toy itself, it's not what new things allow you to perform, the new actions. It's how it's transmitted that this magic toy is, one, created by a little girl. Second, at some point you have a hat in the game, which is a magic toy. But in the eyes of the girl, it's not a hat. It's a device that you put on your head and then you can see things different. So the magic toys, or the developers, by doing the magic toys, they are transporting you to the world of kids, and they make you see things like kids see things. Kids haven't experienced life for many years. So adults, we have our mind limited by reality because we have experience for many years, but children, the kids, they don't. So their imagination is less limited. They are more capable of thinking differently. And that's my summary of how kids think. So I feel like this game does the same with the magic toys. You might see one with a glass on top, handle, glass and handle, but it's not that. For CLeM, the protagonist of the story, it's not a handle with a piece of glass. It's a portal. You can see things differently. I don't want to spoil too much, but I think you get the idea. So it really transports you to how a kid would see this house, and this is done by these magic toys. And I think it's the absolute best of this game, how imaginative they are, how imaginative the magic toys are, and also, aside from the magic toys, all of the other mechanics and semi-characters that you might encounter during the game, because there are other things that you encounter, how well integrated they are within the story. That's my biggest positive. My next positive, it's not as surprising, it's just something pleasant and something nice to have in this type of game. And when I say this type of game, I mean in a game that it's aiming for a specific type of public that haven't experienced games as much, video games or adventures of this type. So in the sense of being easy, in the sense of being short and specific and straight to the point, this game, it worries that the player doesn't get stuck. And then some of the ways that it has, it's well put. So you shouldn't be stuck, but if you get stuck, something happens. If for whatever reason you get stuck or you make a mistake, which I did, and I'll show you as an example. I'll tell you, can't show you. You can see in episode 1 of my gameplay playthrough. If for whatever reason you make a mistake or you forget to do something or you are stuck, then it comes my next positive, which is something little but important as well, which is a voice. there comes a voice that helps you. It reminded me like the Super Guide from Nintendo. They implemented in some Mario games during the Wii time, I believe, or the Wii U. So at some point, if you get stuck, you have the voice of CLeM, I believe it is. Yes, it is. It's the voice of CLeM, the little girl. And because she's like supervising you, and it tells you, oh, have you tried this? Have you think about that? I don't know all of the cases because I didn't encounter all of them, but at some point I was in the pantry. In the kitchen, you can access the pantry, and within the pantry, I played the demo. And then you open a drawer and there are 3 items. I took the 3 items and I left, and that's it within the demo. But when I played the whole game, the full game, I went to the same situation as the beginning of the game. You go to the pantry, open the drawer with a magic toy, which is a key, but it's not a key, it's 4 little stones. How imaginative. Please, someone give them a prize. You open the drawer and you get these 3 items. But because I was over this situation, I went through this situation before, I had been there, I was assuming like, oh yeah, I know already. Let's go fast. So out of the 3 items, I took 2, and I forgot the last one, which could be the most important, but it is necessary to continue the adventure. Once I left the pantry and I changed screen and I was in the kitchen, the voice said, are you sure you got everything you needed? And then I was, what do you mean? I know already what I'm doing. So I went back to the pantry and I realized out of the 3 I was missing one item. It's a little detail. It was unnecessary because in old point-and-click adventures, if you get stuck, you revisit the scenario, and it was obvious that I was leaving this object behind. So I would have found it. But this game doesn't allow you to do unnecessary things. It wants you to go through everything once and only once. So if you miss an item, it will tell you, hey, just check just in case. It will not tell you specifically you are missing this object here, but it gives you hints. And at some other point I got stuck for some time, and I remember I got the voice to tell me something, but I don't remember specifically. I would need to rewatch my own playthrough. But I got it twice, and I believe in the demo I also got it sometime. And it's not revolutionary, it's not mind-blowing, but it is clear to me that this game knows what it wants to do, knows what it wants to be, and this voice helping you, it's clear that it's pushing the whole concept of the game in the same direction, along with the other aspects, by being easy, being short, being specific. So these are my positives. They are not mind-blowing, but well, if these imaginative toys, they could be a little bit mind-blowing. The thing is that this all of the game, maybe that could be the third positive. Everything in this game, it's mundane. They are normal objects. You get a mirror, a hand mirror. It's not a mirror, it has a piece of glass in the tip. You get a hat, you get a key, you get a oil decanter, you get normal objects. But because you are looking through the lens of the little girl, you are not seeing normal objects, you're seeing something else. And it's beautiful how the game transmits you this. Now, let's get to the negatives, which I don't have many, I just have one. For good or for bad, I can't criticize much because the game doesn't have much to criticize. It's short and it's specific, it's not revolutionary. There are things that could be done better, maybe, but at some level I think it's more my likeness to the game rather than actual things that they are clearly badly executed. So my only negative, and I'll tell you in advance before I explain, I don't have something that annoys me or something that infuriates me. So my only negative is just something little, it's the backtracking. And when I say backtracking, let me explain, because it might not be what you straight away think. When I say backtracking, it's not the actual fact that you have to backtrack. It didn't annoy me to go back to places that I had already visited, and like I mentioned, in Metroidvanias you revisit levels again and again, and then you explore them further, you get new items with new abilities. That happens in this game at a lower level, everything is minimized. But there are some backtracking which is not real backtracking. Is the fact that when you finish chapter 1, let's call it chapter 1, although it's not implied in the game. When you finish the first loop, you wake up again. You are this ragdoll. You wake up, and then you start exploring the house again, and you have more areas you are allowed to explore more in depth. Rooms that you couldn't access before, now you can. But what I didn't like is that the fact that you don't get to explore them because you got a new ability. Some of these areas, you are not allowed to explore them or to reach them because you've overcome a difficulty. It's just the fact that they are bordered, they have wooden boards that they are blocked, and this is something that I didn't like because it's confusing. You get new abilities that give you access to new areas, but on the other hand, you have doors that are blocked by wooden boards, and in every subsequent chapter, you get the boards removed. So first, who is removing them? There's no one in the house. Apparently, there's no one in this house. Second, why are they boarded in first place? And second, why the boards are later on removed? Within the story and the world of the game, it would make more sense that something happens to the door and you get access to the other side, the new room or whatever, by performing an action yourself, by the evolution of your character. Maybe in the dining room, there's the door that leads to the bathroom. So maybe the game starts with the door boarded, but there's a little hole at the bottom, and you can go through if you transform into a little ball. So you don't need to remove the boards. It's just an example, and I didn't like this kind of backtracking. That's what I mean with backtracking. It's the fact that it seems like the game is giving you the easy way to advance. It's not you that you've overcome a challenge, or you found out the idea or how to sort this obstacle. It's just the game giving you an open door. So I didn't like that much. It's just very little. As I said, it's the minor of the negatives, but for me it's clear that it's not good. It's very tiny little, but... So these are my positives and negatives, and I need to do 2 special mentions. Special mentions are not negative or positive aspects of the game, but there are some concerns maybe, or some things that I need to mention. Maybe by saying them, it is more clear what I mean. So first one is the price of the game. I can't say it's negative or positive. I never take the price of the game into account when reviewing the game, because the price it fluctuates along the time. Sometimes it's cheaper, sometimes it's more expensive. So my review is always true for the whole life of the game, unless they change it or they update it. But the price fluctuates, so I can't take it into account. You might watch this review within a year of recording it, and the price might have changed, so it's not valid. But at the time of doing the review, and that's why I don't add it to the negatives, I don't consider it, but I need to mention it. For how long it lasts, even though it's fun, the little time that it lasts, it's short, but it's fun all the time that you are playing, these 4 to 6 hours. For how short it is, I think it's a little bit overpriced, but probably this is not the developers' fault, but the producers. They did some crazy market research that told them this is the right price for this game. I don't know, but within similar games in the market, it feels overpriced. That's one of the mentions. And the other mention, maybe I am nitpicking. Probably I am, and I'm totally fine. I'm honest. I say that in advance. I am nitpicking, but there's an issue with the artistic style of the game. I'm a little bit confused because I noticed like 2 types of art within the game. There's one when objects are represented with a lot of detail and texture and shadowing, and they kind of have like a 3D effect. They have shadowing, so it's more volumetric. But there are other times where next to it there's another object or element of the environment that it has a plain color. It doesn't have any texture, any shadowing, any bump mapping of any kind. And for me, that is clashing, because one tries to be very realistic and the other one is more on the conceptual side, and they don't match. To how I see things and how I understand art, they are the complete opposites. Maybe by clashing it's creating its own personality, but I don't believe it. I think they are clashing, and they do clash. They don't go along. Out of the two, I prefer the conceptual, because this is a story told by the lens of a little girl. So, and within this idea of being imaginative, I prefer, it's like reading a book. I read the word water and I imagine the water. I don't have to see the water. So if I see something like looks like wood, I prefer within this game that it looks like wood, and the game just makes sure that I believe that is wood, not that it represents wood with all the knots and veins and all the texture, like almost literal. It's literally a picture of a wooden board. This happens more clearly in the backyard. When you go outside the house, the ground is plain, and the wall, which is in front of you, the wall of the house is plain. But there are things around, like the soil from the cat, and then if you go to the greenhouse, all the plants have shadowing and texture. It's like that style of being overdone. Maybe it's the insecurity of the artist by trusting themselves and being able to say, no, this looks like this, and I'm sure that the players will understand this is what I want to represent. And it's an overdone style. Like, it's a lack of confidence, maybe. I am not sure. I don't know. I cannot say. It's just a mention. But for me, there's a clash of two different styles. So there it is, my mention. The art is very personal. So I don't say the art is wrong, because it's not wrong, but I have my opinion on that, and that's why it's just a mention. On my notes, it's not a negative or a positive. For what the game tries to explain and transmit, here there's a little hint that it made me think different, that it didn't point toward the same objective. I prefer the simplistic, because if you get a little kid to make you a drawing, it will be simplistic. It will be like abstract even. It will not be very detailed, will not be very realistic. It will be more abstract than. So I prefer the art of this game to be simple. And I feel like it's like reading a book. You imagine the rest. So there are gaps in the art, and your mind fills the gaps with your own imagination. If you see, you have your character walking around the backyard, you are walking over soil, but you don't see soil like it's realistic soil, but you imagine it's soil. I think that works for this game. I think I explained quite well how I felt by playing this game and what this game wants to transmit, at least what it transmitted to me. So without further ado, my final score for CLeM, it's a guided tour within nature, because it's not mind-blowing. It's something you've already seen. It's nothing extraordinary. You will not be surprised. Your mind will not be blown. But even with the setting, might be something more approachable for everyone. You are in a house. There are no evil spirits. There are no ghosts. It's just a little girl with her imagination. This game, as it happens with a guided tour, one, it doesn't allow you to get stuck. It keeps you going all the time. If you get stuck, it helps you. It's not hard, so you will very rarely get stuck. And also, even though you see a hat, it's not a hat, it's something different. It's also fun to turn into a ball and traverse a new environment that you couldn't before. So it's mundane things, maybe not mundane, but they are day-to-day actions that you can perform, but because you are seeing through the lens of the little girl, it turns everything a lot more imaginative. The same as with a guided tour. You might see a flower, but the guide's job is to give you tips and fun facts that you didn't know before. So you are all the time, even though you are seeing day-to-day objects, they keep your interest on the topic. And I think it's the same that this game does. It's not mind-blowing, but it's fun all the time for the little time it lasts. It's short, it keeps you by the hand, and it tells you a story. It goes to the point. So I think this score summarizes quite well what this game tries to be and how I felt. I felt like going through a guided tour. In this case, in this game, is an etymology tour, but it could be any type of guided tour. So that's my final score for CLeM, and I had fun. Something more grounded, but still something that everyone can enjoy. Any age, any experience with video games. So this game is a guided tour throughout nature, and that's my score. Guided tour out of 10 for CLeM, and we say goodbye to CLeM. Hopefully Mango Protocol's next game will be a puzzle game, so we'll have them back. We'll not have them back if it's not a puzzle game, because this is a puzzle game channel. For what you've seen, what would you give? What would be your score for CLeM? Let me know in the comments, in the chat, by email, by messenger, by pigeon, however you want. Let me know your score. Do you agree with my opinion, or what do you disagree?